Oh, that's nice. Running good.
Hi, and welcome to this episode of John's Motorcycle Rescue and Review. Today I am super stoked to be with another cool vintage machine. This one is a 1975 Honda CB550 Four Super Sport. And the Super Sport really was kind of the introduction of factory-built sport bikes. And as such, it was kind of their performance model of the CB550. And really, kind of the concession here to performance was it was one of the first bikes to actually have a 4-into-1 factory-designed exhaust system. And at the time, man, that was really, really trick. You know, a lot of the bikes from the time period had, and even other CB550 models, had the 4-into-4 exhaust, which was just... it wasn't bad for performance per se, but it was a lot heavier. So this was, you know, a little bit more lightweight with the 4-into-1 exhaust. It looked really, really trick. The way that the 4 exhaust pipes kind of snake down around the front of the engine. And I'm not sure if this baffle is stock or not, but it sounds really nice. It's certainly not obnoxious. It sounds like it could be a factory pipe, but it has a nice tone to it, and we'll hear it in just a couple minutes here. So I'm excited about that. The CB550 was an evolution of the CB500. That was kind of the first production model of this bike. In Honda's model lineup range, really the CB750 was the top dog. And so it was kind of their touring model. And, you know, it sounds funny today, and, you know, we've got 2300cc cruisers. But back in the day, a 750cc motorcycle was big. That was really as big as a lot of the Japanese motorcycle manufacturers were making. You know, so a 550 was really their mid-range bike. And I would make the argument, I've ridden the original CB750, and I like that bike. It was very reliable, very smooth, very refined. It didn't leak oil, and it was just so much of a step above the rest of the motorcycling industry, especially products from America, products from Britain. It was just so refined compared to those motorcycles that it just set itself apart instantly. While those aspects of it were great, it really did not handle well. When I rode Honda's CB550 in comparison, what I noticed about the 550 right away was the stability of the handling. It's very intuitive, it's very forgiving, and my thought when I rode the 550 was, man, if Honda can produce a bike that handles this well, why didn't the CB750 handle better? This bike is a friend's bike, and I just want to say thank you, Bill, for letting me review this bike. What a privilege. And just, man, I love this candy blue paint, and this is just a gorgeous little bike. So again, thank you. It's just really a treat to get to ride these vintage bikes that are well kept. Honda's CB550 was their mid-range model, and it was known for being reliable, very smooth, and very good handling for the time period. Just a really nice bike. It sports a single disc front brake, and then it also has a large drum brake in the rear. So the braking, actually, with the motor output and the weight of the bike, the braking is adequate for the size of the machine. And it's well balanced. The handling is good. It's certainly adequate for the power output. The brakes are good. They're well matched with the power output. And it really, really works well as a cohesive package. Well, enough talk. Let's go see what this bike actually runs like out on the road. I'm gonna grab my gear. I'll bring the camera along. Let's ride.
currently riding Honda's 1975 CB550 Four, and this is a Super Sport model of it. And what a fantastic little bike. This bike is very smooth. I'm tooling right along right now in top gear, doing about 65 miles an hour, although I think the speedometer might be a little bit optimistic here. The seating position is very comfortable. It's very neutral, and everything just kind of falls to hand. And I touched on this briefly in the intro, and I know I'm going to risk offending some of the, the original CB750 fans out there, but you could certainly make an argument that this is a better all-around bike than the original CB750. And a lot of that really has to do with the handling of the bike. This bike just handles so, it's very neutral. It's very easy, and it's very confidence-inspiring. And in contrast, the CB750 just seems, I've ridden one of those for several hundred miles, and it's just a bike that I was never able to quite come to terms with, that I never just trusted it fully. The shifting on this bike is just beautiful. The sound is really nice coming out of that 4-into-1 exhaust. It has just a little bit of tone. But it's not booming or obnoxious. There's a little bit of squeal from the front brake, but that was typical of the time period. Plenty of pep from that beautiful little 4-cylinder motor. Yeah, what a treat. What a nice bike. Put some corners here. It just turns in and handles so beautifully. Very nice. I really like the styling on this bike. I think it's a very simple but elegant design. And I really like the way the 4-into-1 exhaust. I like the way the headers kind of come across the motor in the front and go down into that single collector. And this bike does feel vintage, but it feels vintage in a very special way. It feels just really cool. And it's a nice place to spend some time just exploring. Especially, if you got some back roads. Yeah, Honda did such a nice job on this middleweight bike. And really, I know today, in today's culture and just the biking scene right now, this is really considered a small motorcycle. And it just... back in the day, it wasn't. This was a mid-sized machine. This is something that you could go across country on. Oh, that's nice. Running good. And the brakes, even though this has got a single disc in the front and a drum brake in the rear, for the power output and for the weight of the bike, the brakes are adequate. It definitely, seems to stop, and everything is just well balanced. This is a machine that, your chassis matches the engine output and the brakes and everything. There's nothing that really stands out that's kind of overpowered for the rest of the bike, and that just makes for a really well balanced machine. And I would argue certainly this is more well balanced than the original CB750. If I'm not mistaken, the CB550 from Honda ran for quite a long time without really any serious competition from the other manufacturers. Now, there were some two-cylinder bikes that competed with it, and there were some like two-stroke machines and two-stroke triples in this size range, but they weren't nearly as refined. They weren't as smooth, and you know, the two-stroke machines, they were certainly rideable and they were certainly entertaining, but you know, everywhere you went you ended up smelling like two-stroke oil, two-stroke exhaust. And as far as a daily driver goes, this bike is so refined that it really, the other bikes, even the twin-cylinder bikes, really can't compete. The bikes of the time period, they just can't compete with the refinement of this machine. One of the things that's kind of surprising to me riding this bike is how smooth the engine is. And even with these hard original grips, the only real vibration I'm getting is there's a slight tingle through the bars, but it's really not bad. And it's, I would call the rest of the vibration minimal. And it's interesting, but as far as bikes from the mid-70s that I've ridden, in this size range, this is my favorite one I've ridden to date. And even though it's only a 550, the motor has decent pull from low RPM. And there's that lovely sound. Oh yeah. Now this isn't my bike, so I'm not, you know, revving it to the moon. But just even at that pace, it's so enjoyable. Very smooth, very, very refined. I love it.
All right, what a treat. Well, I hope you can tell that I really, really enjoyed riding this Honda CB550 Four Super Sport. What a pleasant ride. Very, very smooth, very refined for the time period. And arguably, you know, of the bikes in that era, would I rather ride the CB750 single overhead cam, or would I rather ride this bike? Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, that would be a tough call. I really, really enjoy this, and I honestly really like the handling on this bike as compared to the original 750 from Honda. To me, there is no comparison. This bike really has nice ride sophistication. Everything is well balanced, super smooth, and it has adequate power. And not only that, I love the look of this little CB550. I think it's just gorgeous. So I'd love to know what you guys think. If there are any CB550 fans out there, any of you who have ridden this bike or owned them in the past. You know, years ago when I was in college, I had one of these and I loved it. I thought it was just a fantastic bike. Again, same reasons. It handled great. It was just, it felt vintage, but it felt vintage in really, it's like the best way. It just feels like you're riding something really cool, and it's surprising how refined it is for something from the mid-70s. It's just a really, really nice bike. All right, I hope you found this video entertaining and informative, and until next time, enjoy the ride.